Hey everyone, welcome back to another stimulus update. This video is all about if you have not received your first round of stimulus, there's actually a lot more people out there that Congress just came out and identified that should have gotten their money and they haven't. So if you haven't gotten it, check out this video because we'll tell you exactly what to do if you're in that boat. Hey everyone, welcome back to another stimulus update. I'm Logan.
Hey, I'm Edin.
And Edin, we've been seeing a lot on this channel, a lot of comments saying, I haven't got my first round yet. Where's the first round? And what's always been reported is that we have 10 million people that still haven't received their first round. And what we're going to do, we being the government, is we're going to send out 4 million prepaid debit cards that have the stimulus money on it. Well, on June 5th, so what is that, last Friday, the Committee on Ways and Means came out and reported something different. So, Edin, let's walk through that. What did this committee report on?
Yeah, so what the House Ways and Means Committee is all about is they're kind of responsible on a lot of the financial stuff that goes on in the country, and they ask different stakeholders to kind of give them reports on how taxpayer dollars are being spent. One of those is obviously these economic impact payments, the $1,200 a week stimulus checks. And so what we had is on Friday, they reported, and the House Ways and Means Committee gave us some very interesting figures which reflect the comments that we're seeing on this channel. And that is that there's about 30 to 35 million people who have not yet received their first stimulus check.
So, going through this report, they said that they've had about 160, a little bit less than 100, just we'll use round numbers, 160 million have gotten it, with another 30 that haven't gotten it. So that's a pretty significant number. This is not like what they were saying before, which was, only 10 million people haven't gotten it. Now we're looking at 30 to 35. So I guess this would really make up a lot of the comments that we're seeing and make it more understood, because we're seeing a lot of, we need the second one, but we're also still seeing a lot of, we need that first one.
That's it. And it's just strange that the contrast between what we have been expecting, what we've been hearing, that 4 to 10 million range, to now being 30 to 35, that's a sizable gap. And so that tells us how much, one, misinformation there is, and two, how little of a coordinated effort there is between the different agencies, and how far behind really the IRS is in terms of processing data and sending these stimulus checks out. One of the very crazy numbers that I've seen is that the IRS has 10 million pieces of mail that they're trying to process. And the number in this Ways and Means Committee report is that out of those 10 million pieces of mail, 4.7 million are actual tax returns that the IRS has to process.
So what specifically does that mean?
It means that there's about 4.7 million people who have mailed in a tax return instead of electronically filing. And so somebody has to physically pick up that piece of mail, get that tax return out, and review it, enter it into the IRS system. And if we think about what's happened, is only about 3 weeks ago is when the IRS sent about 10,000 employees back into their field offices to go through this mail and start dealing with it. Now, in normal times, it takes the IRS anywhere between 4 and 8 weeks from opening your mail to actually processing it and having it hit their systems. And so what we're going to see now is, because everything's delayed, is that I have a bad feeling that these 4.7 million people who mailed in a tax return, if they get their economic impact payment, it's going to be either in the fall or not at all this year, and they're going to have to wait until next year when they file their tax return to basically claim a credit on next year's tax return.
Interesting. So let's break down some of these numbers of this 30 to 35 million, because I'm sure a lot of people are out there thinking, well, who makes that up? So we first have 13 to 18 million taxpayers who file returns below the CARES Act income thresholds. So Dean, what does that mean? Who in layman's terms falls into this 13 to 18 million taxpayers?
So this is now going the other way. This is people who have filed their tax return, are below the 75,000 adjusted gross income, or if you're married, filing jointly, 150,000 limit, and you filed an electronic tax return. And so it's 13 to 18 million people who are just kind of in limbo, waiting for the IRS to process their return, have it post, and then issue the economic impact payment. And that makes up close to half of the people who are missing it. And so for them, it's very frustrating because you've done everything, you've electronically filed, you're below the threshold, you likely have already given them your direct deposit information, and you're now just in no man's land, just kind of waiting for them to do their work so that you can get your stimulus check.
Yeah, that's a lot. So next item down is 7.5 million Social Security and RRB recipients who do not file tax returns.
Correct. So this is mainly people who are, RRB is railroad benefits. That's a legacy, basically, retirement program through the Social Security Administration. And so this 7.5 million is our elderly citizens who are on Social Security. They make less than the threshold for filing a tax return. So either all of their income is from Social Security, or they might have a part-time job where they don't earn enough to file a tax return. However, they're getting direct deposit checks from, their Social Security benefits are getting direct deposited into their bank account. And what we've been told is if you are on Social Security and you're getting direct deposits for your Social Security benefits, then your economic impact payment, your stimulus payment is also going to get direct deposited, because the Social Security Administration is going to share your direct deposit info with the IRS. And so they have your info again. They know who you are, they have your bank info, but they just have not given you your stimulus money.
So it sounds like they're in the batter's box, but they just haven't stepped up.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where there's no reason for why they haven't gotten it yet. Again, they have all your info. If they've been systematically processing them in the computer system, going, okay, like who's eligible, whose info do we have? Click a button, give them the stimulus payment, and it's not happening for 7.5 million Social Security recipients.
Interesting. So next item down is 10.7 million taxpayers who are not required to file tax returns and who do not receive federal government benefits.
Yeah, so this is people who either don't make enough money to file a tax return, or people who don't work at all and are not required to file tax returns, and also who do not receive Social Security or Social Security disability benefits, so that the government doesn't really know about you, whether you exist, the fact that you're eligible for this. And what they did on the front end of this, when the CARES Act passed, on the IRS's website, there's a link that says non-filer tool. And what that means is if you're somebody who does not file tax returns because you're not required to, you were able to use that non-filer tool to enter your bank information so that you can get a direct deposit. And I believe if you don't have a bank account, that you are able to enter your address so they can send you either a physical check or one of those debit cards that we talked about before. So if you're one of those people out here listening right now and you're wondering, am I eligible? I don't file a tax return, I haven't gotten anything. Make sure you go to the IRS's website, irs.gov, use that non-filer tool to enter your information, and hopefully so that you can get it as soon as possible.
Yeah, and then the last item is unknown millions, which is probably the worst statistic. Unknown millions of SSI only or VA recipients who do not file tax returns. So we're getting a lot of, hey, I'm on SSI, what happens with me? Well, if you haven't gotten a check, it really seems like you've fallen into that unknown millions category, unfortunately.
Yeah, and so unknown is people, SSI is Social Security, supplemental security income. So those are low income people. Those are people who actually really need this stimulus money. And then VA, obviously veterans who are receiving benefits who also don't file tax returns because they're getting some sort of pension from the VA. Again, we think that just because we're getting a benefit from the government that it's all interrelated and that they have our info, but that's not the case. The agencies do not talk to each other and do not, I mean, sometimes they do share it, like we talk about Social Security, but if you're getting VA benefits or supplemental security income, they don't have your info. And again, you need to use that non-filer tool on the IRS's website.
There you go, everyone. So I know we've been reporting on 10 million, have not had their actual first round stimulus checks come in. But if you're in this boat that you haven't had it, it's actually 30 to 35 million. And depending on which category you fall into, whether you're Social Security, you're on SSI, or you're just a normal taxpayer, there's varying numbers that fall into each segment. So make sure that you're taking the actions that you need to move forward, but just understand that there's more than 10 million out there. There's a lot more. So I would imagine now next steps would be is the government to figure this out and rectify the problem, because now they're addressing it.
Yeah, and Logan, if it's okay, can we, I'll send you the number. There's a specific IRS hotline number that people can call and use to check on their status. So if the online "where's my stimulus payment" tool does not work for you, if it gives you an error, there's a 1-800 number that you can call and inquire about your situation. Now, obviously, if we have 30 to 35 million people calling, it might be some long hold times. Usually your best times to call are first thing in the morning. I have not called that hotline, but I would try at 7 a.m. That's usually when most IRS hotlines open. And if you give them a call at 7 a.m., usually your hold times are going to be the shortest.
7 a.m. Eastern?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Everyone, if you haven't had your first round of stimulus, this is probably why. So now we're getting some light onto the situation, because it seemed like either all 10 million people all came on the internet at the same time saying I haven't gotten it, or there was something weird about the numbers, and that obviously appears to be the case. So as always, thank you very much. And if you want to stay up to date with everything stimulus, hit the subscribe button below, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.